Well, a very good morning, but by the time you watch this, it is going to be probably early afternoon. I am going on holiday as of today, so the scheduling is going to change slightly as of today, as I'm going to be traveling for the next day and a half or so, and then there will be videos in the coming days to come. There is a look back at the winter forecast versus what was said against what the actual pattern, how it evolved. So do check that out in tomorrow's video. I'm also going to have an article written up. In fact, it is actually available on marfoganweather.com already, so you can check that out at your leisure and let me know in the comments what you think. But a very warm welcome to the Wednesday edition of Hogan's European Outlook. It is the 19th of February. We are about a week away from ending meteorological winter. This is how the current Northern Hemisphere snow cover is looking like. And we've got obviously a fairly extensive snow cover, especially across Eurasia and also North America. There is a lack of snow over Western Europe. We are probably sitting at the lowest levels for the UK since at least 1998 for mid-February anyway. But Central and Eastern Europe is turning much, much colder. So at the time of recording, these are the temperatures. So we've got the double digits below freezing through the central swathe of the continent, and east and northwards we've got less colder the further west you go. Now, we have had a predominantly easterly flow over the last couple of weeks or so. That is now ending. We're seeing the winds change to a more southwesterly direction, and as a consequence, we're going to see some spring-like warmth, but turning wetter and windier with that regime change. And I think we do need to watch the pattern as we start to see this bitterly colder now starting to spread eastwards over North America. That's going to strengthen the jet stream over the Atlantic. And with the MJO starting to transition more towards phase 2, possibly 3, and eventually 4 and 5, my hunch would be that we start to see the Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation going positive, and as a consequence, we start to see a much more Atlantic-driven regime. Now, the latest GFS ensemble indicates that we go from an Arctic Oscillation that's been in the tank, all of a sudden flips back positive once again as heights start to lower over the top of the pole. We'll start to see the subtropical ridge getting lifted a little bit further north, and the entire pattern is kind of flipping around. This is the North Atlantic Oscillation, and you can see here that we went from weekly negative here into firmly positive territory. Now, this is the upcoming 5 days off the GFS ensemble, and you can see here still a lot of warmth compared to average anyway over the top. Bitterly cold the central and eastern half of the United States. We've got a cold Eastern Europe. We've got a mild Western Europe here, with the southwesterly winds going to be driving the next 5 days across the UK and Ireland. And like I say, as a consequence of this, we are going to see a push towards 16 Celsius. Now, this is the month to date so far, and we are continuing to drive that below average anomaly. Granted that we're only 28 days this month, so it's going to be interesting to see how this month pans out. But this is the past 18 days, obviously the 18 days of February. And this is how the last 60 days is looking, which is interesting here. You've got average to slightly above average across the north of the UK, slightly below average across the south of the UK. And then when you start to factor in the 90-day period, and this is really incorporating the winter as a whole, we're sitting pretty much on average. This winter looks as if it's going to be very close to average when you pan out anywhere from 1st of December through the 20th of February. I think we're going to be right around the average in terms of the temperature anomaly. So like I say, there is going to be a recap in tomorrow's video with regards to how the winter panned out and my kind of summation of that. This is the upcoming 7 days of the ECMWF. So very cold central and particularly Eastern Europe here, down towards the Balkans, Greece, Turkey, up towards the North Sea, the north side of the Black Sea, in the Ukraine, western areas of Russia. A very cold upcoming 7 days to come. We've also got that other piece of the tropospheric polar vortex over the lower 48 of the North America. very mild across the top, as can be seen here. But this is the snow deficit, obviously, for the month of January. I've already showed this already, but it looks as if we had a slightly snowier than average January, and no folks in the south of the UK are going to say it hasn't been snowy at all, really, this winter. And quite honestly, this is not really a massive surprise. Remember, the winter forecast did specify temperature as opposed to snowfall. I did expect to have possibly a snowier central and northern UK, slightly less so across the south of the UK based on recent climate and whatnot. But look at Europe, much, much below normal in terms of snow cover across the continent. Has been one of the mildest winters actually for the European continent. Looking at North America, you can see here some deficits into the southwest, slightly above average. No surprise with a La Nina across the Northern Rockies, northwestern portions of the country here, down the plains, into the Tennessee Valley, for example, and then the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast has started to see the turnaround in the snowfall deficit, especially as we progress through the last couple of weeks. We've got some pretty decent snow systems moving eastwards across North America. And what that's going to do is, with this clash of air mass, we are going to see the jet stream becoming much more active, I think. And with the MJO heading towards phases, possibly phases 2 and 3, and given the overall situation here now, I looked at the polar vortex, the latest information, and quite honestly, there's not a huge amount to look at here. We're still seeing this kind of stretching and pulling of the PV at 10 millibars up in the top of the stratosphere. Not a great indicator of anything, to be honest with you. What I would say is that with the MJO heading back towards stormier phases and then ultimately warmer phases of 4 and 5 possibly down the road, based on what's going on, I think we are going to see a spell of mild, but that's also going to be interspersed with the transport of originally Siberian air over the top into North America. Then that gets forced out into the Atlantic, and with areas of low pressure spinning up, deepening as they make an eastward transit across the Atlantic, we may see not necessarily a particularly mild Atlantic flow for Western Europe here going forward. So you can see here this speed max exit North America as a consequence of that clash in temperature. You can see areas of low pressure moving up towards Iceland and Greenland here. That's your classic positive North Atlantic oscillation pattern as we move towards the 21st, 22nd of February here. We've got this jet moving in. We've got these dips in the jet. That's where you can start to see cyclogenesis develop here. We've got some fairly deep areas of low pressure into the 940s and millibars heading up towards Iceland. And as a consequence, we're pulling that air in from warmer climes from the south here. Continue to play through the course of the weekend into early and middle of next week. You can see this jet continuing to kind of just stream across the Atlantic, throwing areas of low pressure towards the UK. And we may start to see these lows track a little bit closer. The centre of these lows tracking a little bit closer towards the UK and Ireland here as we move towards the mid to second half of the week. So really the final days of the month of February, meteorological winter. I wouldn't be surprised if we turn somewhat stormier in our part of the world as a consequence of various things coming together. So we'll certainly keep an eye on this going forward. Remember I said to you about the collection of blue dots now starting to appear over Central Europe and over Central United States. Those are the two pools of tropospheric polar vortex setting up. And obviously when you've got that colder building over Central and Eastern Europe, 9 times out of 10 you're milder than average across Western Europe. What's going to happen is we're going to see these blue dots over North America push more eastward. So these are the current projected low temperature records for the United States. Looking at Europe, you can see here a few over Central Europe. I think we're going to see more and more of these blue dots spread eastwards, but also ultimately we're going to start to see these orangey dots appear on the western side of the continent as we start to lift that milder air in from the southwesterly direction. So that's it for today. Do continue to stick around. Yes, I'm going to be traveling for the next day and a half or so, as I've already stated. But there is a recap of the winter forecast in tomorrow's video. And then from the destination, it's going to remain a little surprise, but I'll have a video from the destination that I'm going to coming up in Friday's edition of the European Outlook, which all the video uploads are going to be probably closer to lunchtime going forward. So stay tuned for that. Little alteration of the scheduling here, but nevertheless, there's still going to be videos more or less every single day of the week. And the live stream this upcoming weekend is going to be an interesting one, put it that way. So if you haven't already done so, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, and also leave a comment below. It would be good to hear from you. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Bye for now.